Hello and welcome to the channel. Here on the channel we talk about leadership, church leadership, and specifically Christian-based leadership or Christian-based leadership principles. But for the next several videos, I'm going to be talking about leadership lessons or traits that we can learn from the book of Nehemiah. So for me, this project goes back to my college days when I took Survey of Old Testament or Intro to Old Testament, depending on what it's called at a specific college. But we did a project that was strictly based on leadership from the book of Nehemiah, and we had to identify several key traits of leadership. What I learned after that is there's actually way more than what was required in the project. We were required for, I think, 6. I'm pretty sure we could pull dozens of leadership lessons out of Nehemiah. Now, I'm not going to make dozens of videos. It's not going to be like 100 videos or something crazy on Nehemiah and leadership. But I want to walk through a handful of key leadership traits that we can learn from. So for this first video, since Nehemiah is going to be the topic for several videos, I want to give an introduction and an overview of Nehemiah for why it's important to leadership. So Nehemiah was a Hebrew man who was in exile. The people had sinned, they were out of the promised land, and they were not where they wanted to be. And they were scattered abroad in all kinds of different nations, kingdoms, and other cultures. Nehemiah was one of those, but he had found favor with the king that he was under and served as his cupbearer. Now, the cupbearer, while it was a servant-type position, it was still in the king's court. And for Nehemiah, this position was of high respect because the cupbearer was a trusted person that had to try the drinks that would be served to the king to ensure they were not poisoned. That was the way they tested to ensure there wasn't going to be an assassination attempt. But it also was a place of high respect because for that cupbearer, they also were the easiest person that could poison a king. So they were a person they wanted to be sure they would not be bribed, they would not be influenced, and they would not turn against their king. They were a loyal, trusted person in the king's court. So the cupbearer was a very respectable position to hold. But we find Nehemiah here. He's in a foreign land. He's abroad. He's serving as a cupbearer to a foreign king. He is not anywhere that we would expect to find somebody that's one of God's chosen people, the Hebrews. But in this book, this case study on leadership, that is the book of Nehemiah, we can go through and we can see how Nehemiah, even in that position, he catches a burden. He catches a desire to go and to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And we can see his journey from catching this desire and hearing about what the state of the walls are and why it matters to him, to then all of a sudden going and getting buy-in and asking permission of the king to go and getting the supplies and getting people and dealing with discouragement and those who would criticize and on and on and on, all the difficulties. We can see how Nehemiah overcame it all with the Lord's help to become a great leader and to give us a great leadership example in the Bible. Now for me, I could argue, and I know there are others, John Maxwell is actually one that will say this as well, that the best leadership book that has ever been written is the Bible. And I believe we can pull so many great leadership lessons from the Bible. And I believe Nehemiah is one of those that's right here in the Old Testament, just kind of right in the middle of the Old Testament. But we can take so many lessons and ideas and thoughts of leadership from this book and learn from them. So when we look at Nehemiah, we see somebody that's in a respected but a strange place. They catch a burden. They get the vision of what they want to see happen. They get the buy-in of people. They get the supplies. They get the know-how, the ability, and they go and they rally the people around that idea. We then see them deal with discouragement, people that are critical, people that say it won't work. You have to adjust. You have to adapt. You have to overcome. And ultimately, he saw his vision come to fruition. And we see that he was able to lead the people in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. So he is a leader by all definitions, all examples, everything we could look at. He's a leader. So why not study it from a leadership perspective? And so that's what I'm going to do for the next several videos. This is your introduction, the case study, why it matters, why it's important, and a high-level set of information. But starting with the next video, we're going to start going through key traits and elements of Nehemiah from a leadership perspective. So I'll see you in the next one.